Hello and welcome to Battle Streams in Middle-earth, and welcome to Damian's hobby vlog number 40. Boom! Oh yes. Welcome to Battle Streams in Middle-earth. If you're new here, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down there, and at the end of the video drop a comment in and let us know what you think. I really do appreciate them and try and respond to them all. So yes, welcome to Battle Streams in Middle-earth. This is of course our channel where we try and help the hobbyists of the world clear their backlogs to sort through that amazing grey pile of potential and get more and more stuff painted, just for the fun of that. And we do that in two ways. The first of those is that every couple of weeks I host a live stream on here where we hang out and we go through a issue of Battle DXD's Partwork Battle Games in Middle-earth, and we all paint whatever came with it. So we all paint Aragon, or we all paint Orcs, and hang out and hobby just for the fun of it. So if you like the sound of that, check out our live links below and get involved in the next one. And the other thing I do is I try and track my own hobby journey throughout this same process by doing hobby vlogs and seeing how much I've painted and vlogging about what I've done to kind of motivate myself and to clear my own hobby backlog. So this video is probably going to be entitled The Road to Throne of Skulls 3 Project Shire Part 6. So yes, this is where the real exciting stuff for Throne of Skulls gets stuck in. So if you're just finding this, I suggest you go and watch the last hobby vlog, which would have been hobby vlog 39. Which was the one where I outlined my plans for Throne of Skulls project. I had a big rambly chat about what's happened over the last 4.5 years to get me to the point where I could finally take my dream project of Bilbo's birthday party to Throne of Skulls. I've been planning this since Throne of Skulls 2020. That was the plan, to do it for 2020, and this is the year that it is finally going to happen. So, if you've been following my hobby vlogs, you know that since July I've been painting Hobbits, and I've been trying to get the army painted, trying to work through it all. And I have now painted in total 3 of the 4 batches that I need to paint. So one of those were painted 4 years ago. The Hobbits of Red Farthing were painted 4 years ago. And then this year I painted the Hobbits of Blue Farthing and the Hobbits of Green Farthing, along with a bunch of heroes to lead them. So I'm now down to my final batch of Hobbits. And I think it's fair to say that this is where the kind of hobby aspect of this gets really exciting. It's also worth noting about the time that it's currently mid-October. So at the time of, as I record this, I've got 6 weeks until Throne of Skulls. So if you watch the last vlog where not the last vlog, the vlog before that, where I finished painting the last 5 Hobbit heroes, like Rosie, Lotho, Baldo, Robin and Fatty Bolger, that hasn't finished yet. At the moment, those models are still sitting on my desk unfinished. So you've gone back in time to work on this stuff. But yeah, I'm 6 weeks out from Throne of Skulls. And I'm getting quite twitchy because, as I said, right now I need to create, build, convert, and paint a rather spectacular final group of Hobbits, and I need to build the best display board I've ever made in my life. So that's what's ahead. Now the display board is coming in the next vlog. So hopefully there'll be all the content that I know our regular B-Summers look forward to, where I'm stressing out and panicking about getting a display board, getting covered in filler late at night in my shed. That's all going to come in the next vlog. So that one's going to focus on the display board. This one is just going to focus on the last batch of Hobbits, because there is a lot to cover. Basically, there's going to be some cool hobby involved here. So when I planned out the project, the idea was I'd paint 15 Hobbits a go, roughly. I'd do 15, 15, 15, 15 to do my 60 warriors, and then so I'm down to my last 15. But because of all the changes in the army list I've made, by the time I actually get here, I only need to paint 12 militia. Okay, so that means, you know, the numbers have changed a bit, but imagine I've painted 48 militia. So I don't need to do 15, I need to do 12. But the point of this last batch, having painted 45 of these normal little Hobbit warriors, was always that I was going to convert the last batch. The last batch were always going to be unique, they were always going to be special. And so we're doing Bilbo's birthday party. So I had in the back of my head the idea about converting a bunch of them to be like the band that play at Bilbo's party, to convert some of them to be hiding behind barrels like they're playing games, maybe one in a tree, maybe the Proudfoot guy. You know, I had loads of ideas, and so that was always the plan for the last batch. And so what I started doing, you know, as I was, you know, the last couple of months I've been thinking about this, I've been making a list of all the ideas I had, and in the end I came up with 18 ideas. There were 18 things that I felt really keen about building for this army, and of course I only needed 12 militia. And so what that would mean is if I want to include them all, I'd have to paint 18 when I only need 12, and then 6 of the models I've already painted wouldn't get to come to the event, which would be a huge waste of energy having painted those, and it would also mean that I'd have to paint another 6 models from scratch. So what I've decided to do is a very slightly out there idea and a bit dangerous, and I'm not particularly pleased about it, but I'm actually going to take, as it turns out, it's 5 models. I'm going to take them for reasons that will become clear as the video goes on. I'm going to take 5 of the Hobbits I've already painted and convert them. I've found the 5 that look like they'll have the kind of least impact, as it were, and what I've decided to do is chop their weapons off and turn them into conversions. And my hope is that A, I won't damage them too much, and B, what I'll have to paint then will just be their new equipment rather than actually having to paint whole new models. So that's fun. So yeah, you're going to see 5 of my already painted models being converted into special Bilbo's birthday party models, alongside 13 brand new models being converted into kind of Hobbit militia as well. And then alongside those conversions of just generic Hobbits, I also need to convert all my heroes. So as discussed in the last video, I need to have Banderbras Took, but he obviously needs to play Banderbras V, the great grandson of Banderbras. He has to be in the army for the army building rules, so I need to convert some version of him where he looks a bit cool. I also need to convert Frodo, Merry, Pippin and Sam to look like they are at the party, as opposed to all their current models where they look like they're in the Fellowship of the Ring with their cloaks and all that. So I've got ideas for how to do them, and even my Gandalf model I need to convert, because it's only a tiny conversion, but I'm using a Hobbit Gandalf, so he has the Hobbit staff, so I'm going to put the Lord of the Rings staff on him. So yeah, that's what's ahead. I'm super excited because I think this will be the thing that really makes the project pop. Having in total, it's going to be, is it 19, I think? Yeah, I think it's 19 conversions from about an 80 model army. So a quarter of the army is going to be converted, which will be super fun, hopefully. And I'm getting really stuck into it. But why have I gone back in time to before I painted those heroes? Because I suddenly realised all this converting was going to take an awful amount of time, far more than I expected. My original plan was finish painting the Hobbit heroes and then, you know, spend a few evenings doing the conversions and then get on with it. And what I realised was it was just going to take far longer than I expected. So I would have to start it earlier. So what I've started doing is thinking, okay, well now, as I finish painting those 5 Hobbit heroes that you've already seen completed, while I'm sitting in front of the telly with Emma and kind of watching telly in the evening, I'm going to do a bit of converting. So yeah, that's the idea, to kind of make that process a little more manageable. I'm going to get super stuck in. So what do I have? I have our Shire box. I introduced this again on the last stream. It came out. Sorry, on the last video, it came back out and is now. This is the box that I hid away. It's not to be used until the uttermost end of need about 4 years ago, and have now dug back out. Okay, so let's have a look in here and see what we've got to play with. So there are some bits and bobs. I've still got the Gandalf the Grey model in here. This is the Gandalf the Grey on cart. He's important. I've got bags of Hobbits. I've got bags of complete militia. I've got what else have we got? I've got other little bags of like some resin guys. I've got more kind of little militia guys. And as well as that, I've got Bulrora Took. I've got some new Forgewell packs of heroes that you've seen complete already. And then as well as all that stuff, I've got some of the scenery that I've bought for my display board. So you'll see this in the future, but I've got like a bag of... Is that going to focus? Oh. Why are you not having fun? Go on, focus, you know you want to. There we go. I've got a bag of barrels, and I've got this bag which is loads and loads of crockery. It's loads of plates and loads of mugs and that sort of stuff. And I've got other bits and bobs in here. I had a little bag of kind of furniture bits in here, but maybe, oh there it is. I've also got this sort of thing where there's a little bag of kind of stools and chairs and that sort of stuff, and lots more besides. So, in total in here, I have got 39 base models. So within that box now, I've got 39 Hobbits. And at this point, I need to say a massive thank you to some of our B-Sign community. So I would like to say a huge thank you to Matt Hudson, Chris Webster, Julian Hammond, Michael Haskell, and Jamie Wiggins, all of whom sent me Hobbits to use for this, all of whom contributed Hobbits. So I put a call out to some of our wonderful patrons, just saying, hi, I'm in need of these models, and it was largely the kind of slightly quirky models, so like Sam cooking and Merry and Pippin crouching and things like that. It was the Hobbits that, like, not militia, that are just in interesting poses, and I wanted them because I needed their heads for Sam, Merry and Pippin and Frodo, but also because then those poses are quite cool for conversions, to have Hobbits sitting on things and that sort of stuff and crouching. So yeah, a massive thank you to those guys who all kindly, all of whom I think just donated the models for free, which is amazing. So thank you very much. So between that, and I've dug out a bunch of models from my collection. So I've had some old, as well as all the militia and the sheriffs I've got left, I've had like some Merry and Pippins, the old metal Merry and Pippin that sit on Treebeard. I've put those in. What else was there? There was an old Farmer Maggot I had, an old Gaffer Gamgee, so I chucked those in like spare models. And so yeah, I've ended up with 39 Hobbits, and in total I need to convert, well, it's 18 Hobbits, isn't it? 19 models, one of which is Gandalf, I think. So yeah, I need to do 18 conversions. So I've got 39 models that I'm going to start chopping up, and I've also picked up some other bits as well. I've got like some musical instruments and stuff, and I'm going to try and make 18 super cool conversions. And that's the plan of this vlog. I hope it's going to be a lot of fun. As I said, I've got 6 weeks to go, so I imagine that you'll probably see this vlog after Throne of Skulls, because I just won't have time to edit it. So hi, future Damian. I hope it went well. Let me know. Me? Hey, you know. Well, alright. Paint the Hobbits. Paint the Hobbits, dude. So that's the plan. I've got all my tools, I've got all my bits, I've got 39 Hobbits ready to slice up, and I need to turn them into 18 incredible Hobbit conversions and then paint them. That's the plan for this vlog. So what I'm going to do is my plan is to film those bits as I go, and then do a little voiceover basically to talk you through the conversions process and show you what I did and what I came up with. And hopefully that's about to happen very, very soon. So let's get stuck in and have some fun, and fingers crossed we can get the last of the models for this army done in time for Throne of Skulls. Let's go! So before us now we have a very unique and unfortunate band of hobbits. These unlucky few are those who have been chosen for conversion. So I have 5 completed hobbits here. From the red farthing I have the guy with the two-handed axe and the guy with the dagger. From the blue farthing I have the guy with the blue waistcoat and the guy with the hammer. And from, I'm not actually sure which, I think this might have been the red farthing as well, this might have been an original one, but I have the guy with the two-handed hammer. And these 5 are all the painted models that I think I might have mentioned this before, but what's happened here is I've chosen to use these painted models to convert them into some of my conversions, with the idea being that I won't have to paint full militia models. Now obviously I'm going to have to touch up some of the damage that I do to them, like, of course, but I won't I still think touching up the damage will be quicker than painting a whole new model. So that's what's next. These 5 models, which I slaved over, finished the bases over the last sort of 3 months, and actually some of them 4 years ago, are now going back under the knife, and I'm just going to have to be as gentle as possible, and hopefully the damage I do to them will be relatively minimal, and I only have to paint up their kind of new instruments and so on and so forth. And yeah, my hope is that those 5 will then give me 5 more unique conversions for the army without having to paint 5 brand new models. And yeah, there we go. I hope that all makes sense. The alternative to this would be converting 5 new militia into these poses and then not taking these to the tournament because they would be spare models. So that's why I'm doing it. I'm making sure I've got no spare models left over by turning already painted models into conversions after the fact. So yeah, I'm a bit nervous about this. I'm not convinced it's a great idea, but these are the times we live in. So let's get stuck into those guys as well and see how we get on. And so I got stuck in. First up was Bandabras Took the Fifth, the great-great-grandson of the Bull Roarer. As explained in my last video, I had to include Bandabras to adhere to the army list building rules, so I decided to make him a descendant with echoes of Bull Roarer. I figured that the best way to do this was by placing him riding a barrel and dubbing him the Barrel Roarer, and I would paint a bull on the front of the barrel to reference the Bull Roarer. I started with the mounted Bandabras model and slightly widened his legs to fit over the plastic barrel from the Rohan house kit. Next, I chopped Bandabras's head off as it was too recognisable and replaced it with the head from a spare farmer maggot, a model who has quite a big head so would fit well, ultimately creating a conversion I was really pleased with. Next up, I got stuck into the warriors. I knew that I wanted to include loads of hobbits with musical instruments and picked up a set of musical instruments from Reaper Miniatures. I decided to start with a guitarist. I took the body of Gaffer Gamgee, which, due to its raised knee, looked like it would be good for holding a guitar. I used my existing Gaffer Gamgee model to test out the pose and realised that I'll be able to glue Gaffer's original right hand in place over the guitar. Next, I experimented with a few different left arm options, specifically looking for ones that just had a shirt on, ideally rolled up, before eventually settling on the arm from this Hobbit archer. Next up, I decided to use the open left hand from Folko Boffin, kindly donated by Chris Webster, to rest the guitar on, and chose to use this shouting, or singing, Hobbit militia model for the head. This was a very fiddly one, but I was ultimately very pleased with the finished result. It got me off to a good start and gave me confidence to continue with the project. Next up, I took the Hobbit archer who had donated his arm to the guitar playing Hobbit and chopped off his head and his other arm before adding the head from a militia with an axe. I took the Hobbit archer's original right arm and positioned it to be reaching round in front of this harp from the Reaper Miniatures set. I then took the left arm from a Tolman cotton that Michael Haskell had kindly donated and then sliced the hand off a Robin Smallborough, also provided by Michael, and glued it to the Tolman cotton arm as I thought the 2 pointing fingers might look like they were plucking a harp. Next up, I took the painted militia with axe and cut the axe off before adding this French horn style instrument. I cut the mouthpiece off the horn and set it aside, and then fiddled with the positioning until I found a pose I was happy with. Once the horn was in place, I added the mouthpiece back in what is ultimately quite an odd position, but one that I think kinda worked. Next up, I also had this great little violin, so I started thinking about how I could create a violinist. I started by taking another Hobbit militia archer who I thought had the right arm positions and cutting his head off. I decided to use the open hand from another Folko Boffin, this time kindly donated by Michael Haskell, along with the same Folko's head. I repositioned the right arm so it was horizontal and replaced the right hand with one from Holfoot Bracekerdle, also kindly sent to me by Michael, and used the bottom of his club as the bottom of the violin bow, before adding the rest of the bow coming out of his hand and resting on the violin. This one was really fiddly, and trying to arrange the head, the violin and both arms in the right position at the same time was really tricky. However, after a lot of frustration, I managed to find a pose that I was really happy with. I had also decided by this point that I didn't want any of my musician conversions to have weapons, so I cut the flights off the model's quiver and drilled a hole into it, theorising it could be the pouch for the violin's bow. I had originally planned on painting the last 2 archers I needed for my army as part of this final batch of hobbits, but as the fun of converting got hold of me, I had instead converted my 2 archers into the harpist and violinist. As such, I then had to turn 2 of my existing painted militia into archers. The first of these had a very simple but effective conversion, just cutting off his hand and replacing it with the bow and hand from the archer who had given his arm to the guitar player and become the harpist. Once in place, I added a quiver from the plastic Wild Rider sprue that I found in my bits box. The other archer I needed was the simplest conversion of all of them. I just took a painted Hobbit militia and added the bow and quiver from the Battle Games in Middle-earth conversion sprue, cut down a little to make it Hobbit size. In all honesty, I think this one is a bit rubbish, but it'll do the job. This conversion is not meant to be a focal part of the board. He's just standing in for one of my converted archers, so he can hide at the back of the display board. Next up, I took another painted militia and grabbed a tambourine and panpipes from the instrument sprue. This was a fairly simple conversion and just required adding the instruments to the hand. I was happy with the tambourine, but it proved difficult to make it look like the hand was actually holding the panpipes instead of kind of being inside them. Still, it'll do, I suppose. Next, I set to work creating a drummer. I started by taking a merry from the old metal treebeard and took the head from this trendy Hobbit archer. I also took one of the metal stools I'd ordered from Tom Aurelian, more on them in a future vlog, and grabbed 2 different drums from the instrument sprue. All of these bits were glued in place, and I tried to arrange the 3 elements so it looked as though his right hand was resting on the drum. Next, I decided to make a pair of models, one holding a big horn and the other one blowing it. I started with a painted militia, with the hammer and this funky horn. I didn't fancy the risk of getting this guy's head off without damaging the paint job on the arms, so I just decided to add the horn on each side of the hands and hope that the central length of hammer would serve as the central length of horn. The second of these 2 began life as a decapitated Pippin from the old metal treebeard set, sitting on a barrel. I then added the head from a Hobbit militia, choosing this head in particular as I thought the shouting pose would also look as if he was taking the deep breath before the plunge of blowing his horn. With the height of the blower decided, I added the horn ends to the horn holder, bending the mouthpiece into the perfect position so that when you stood next to the horn blower, it would line up nicely. With many of the militia now converted, I decided to treat myself by turning to my 4 Fellowship hero Hobbits. One of the complications that I had on this project was that Merry, Pippin and Frodo are all just wearing waistcoats and shirts at the party, and there are only 2 Hobbit models that are just wearing waistcoats, one of the militia and Folko Boffin, leaving me with relatively little choice. Given that my display board was going to have the big one that Merry and Pippin let off exploding above it, I knew that I wanted to capture the moment where Merry and Pippin are looking shocked and a little bit excited about what they've done. As they'd be standing next to each other, I knew that one would have to use Folko Boffin as a base and the other would have to use the Hobbit militia. For Pippin, I cut off the left arm from the militia model that was punching the air and replaced it with the left arm of the farmer maggot model that I had beheaded to give to Bandabras. For Merry, I cut off Folko's left arm and replaced it with the pointing arm from the Holfoot brace girdle who had already donated his hand to the violinist, with the intent to have him pointing at the firework dragon. For the shocked faces, I had planned on using the Grishnak models donated by Julian Hammond and promptly cut the head off Merry and Pippin. These both came off very easily and left a nice smooth surface to attach new heads to for future conversions. However, whilst the heads were great, I noticed they were a little too large for the smaller Hobbit bodies, and so went looking for other options. Thankfully, I found them in the new Merry and Treebeard kit. One of the fun things about the new hero kits is that if you want to remove a piece, you often have to build the whole model first, as the heads can often be in 2, 3 or 477 pieces. So I assembled Merry and Pippin and then immediately decapitated them. Their wonderfully shocked faces were then glued onto the bodies and I was really pleased with the results. For Frodo, I started from Michael's Folko Boffin model, who I just sliced up for the violin militia. I wanted Frodo to be dancing and kind of hide the fact that it was the distinctive Folko Boffin pose, particularly when he was stood next to Merry. So I went in search of a hobbit with legs that looked as though they could be dancing, eventually settling on this militia with axe. I cut the legs off the militia around the knee and then attacked Michael's Folko. I cut Folko's legs off in a similar place to the axe militia, keeping the legs with those wonderful resin feet for later to use on someone who might be especially proud of their feet. I grabbed the left arm from Gaffer Gamgee, as I thought that, with a bit of luck, the defiant fist clench might also look like someone punching the air with joy. I struggled to choose Frodo's head. It turns out that Frodo has a bit of a rough time during the Lord of the Rings, and almost all of his sculpts seem to be frowning. In the end, I decided to use the Athelian Frodo, kindly donated by Jamie Wiggins, as it was the only Frodo where he had a face that looked in any way happy, or at least kind of ambivalent. I must admit that when I glued all the pieces for this one together, I was really happy with the result. With Frodo complete, it made sense to turn my attention to Sam. Sam is wearing a short jacket in the film, which again isn't too common on the Shire models. However, the body of Robin Smallborough, kindly donated by Michael Haskell, was almost perfect. I struggled with the choice of head as, much like Frodo, Sam's face sculpts are almost always angry or fierce. However, I noticed that the cooking in Athelian Sam, kindly donated by Julian Hammond, had a happier, neutral face, and so I cut it off. Next, I needed some arms with long jacketed sleeves and settled on the left arm from the Bilbo from the Thorin's Company sprue, and for the right arm I used the Robin Smallborough one with the club cut off. Sam only appears briefly at the party with his line about having another ale, so I decided to add a jug and a cup to his hands to reference this moment, and I was really quite happy with the finished result, even if the metal head is a little too big for the resin body. My hope is that he'll be walking away from Rosie at the party. More on the jugs and cups in a future vlog when I come to discuss the display board. With Sam finished, I took the decapitated cooking body and added a frying pan and the head from Michael's Tom and Cotton, who had already donated his left arm to the harpist. I wanted this guy to be feeding one of Maggot's dogs on the display board, and I planned to add some green stuffed sausages to the pan at a later date. Next, I moved on to the two hobbits that would be holding Bilbo's birthday cake between them. I started with the Hobbit militia with his left hand raised, who had donated his head to the guitarist, and added the head from Chris Webster's Folko Boffin, who had given his hand to the guitarist. Unlike most of my birthday party conversions, I decided I would leave the sword on this guy, as it could serve as a really big knife for the really big cake. For the other cake bearer, I used the body of the farmer maggot, whose arm I had donated to Pippin and whose head was donated to Banderbreath V. He was given the Robin Smallborough head that I had removed to use for Sam's body. I filed away the feather from the hat, as this guy was not meant to be a sheriff. The cake itself was a doll's house cake that I picked up on eBay. It was originally two halves of a cake with a layer of filling inside on a thin tray. Despite the fact that the cake in the movie is really big, I ultimately decided that one layer was too large. So I cut the top layer off, peeled off the tray, and repurposed the filling to be the new tray. I planned to add a second smaller layer to the top at a later date. Next up, I decided to do a hobbit who had been knocked down, either by a firework or a dog. I haven't quite decided yet. I started with a Pippin from the Grishnak set that Julian Hammond had sent me, which I had previously decapitated. I replaced Pippin's head with the head from this Hobbit militia, as he was the one that looked most scared. This head was really hard to get off because of the angle, and whilst I was pleased with how it eventually came off, I won't be removing any more of them in a hurry. I also wanted a hobbit to be crouching behind some barrels. I started with the decapitated Crouching Merry from the Grishnak set donated by Julian Hammond, and replaced the head with the head I had removed from Banderbreath Took, where the larger head fit well on the slightly oversized metal Hobbit hero body. This had the somewhat unintended effect of making him look a bit like a Victorian spy, so I began to imagine that this character was some sort of uninvited vagabond, and perhaps the sheriffs would be after him at the party. Next up, I wanted to create a militia who wouldn't even be in the army. I wanted to create one little hobbit who would be sitting in the party tree above Bilbo's head and looking down on the speech. This just struck me as a cool, hobbity idea, very much in the vein of Merry and Pippin. I used the body from the old metal Merry on Treebeard and cut his right arm off and replaced it with one of the right arms from the plastic Treebeard hobbits to change the silhouette of the miniature. I then took the hobbit militia with a hammer and cut his head off and added it. I also wanted to have a go at creating the iconic Proudfoot sitting on the chair with his iconic grumpy face and crossed legs. I started with another Pippin from the old metal Treebeard kit, just without the barrel shown in this clip. I sliced his legs off around the knee to remove the bends, and then glued him to a metal chair and placed a metal chest in front of the chair for him to rest his feet on. I needed an angry looking head, and there was only one option, Gaffer Gamgee. I thought that Gaffer's "Get away from my flowers" shout could easily be repurposed as "Proud feet," and so I grabbed the head that I had chopped off for the Hobbit guitarist and added it on. I took the feet from the Falco boffin that had been removed from the model I used for Frodo and added them to the model, trying to approximate where they should be. I was pleasantly surprised by how well this went and how well the legs worked together. Finally, I converted one more Hobbit to be holding a drink and filling it up from one of the beer barrels, kinda emulating this guy from the film. Sadly, for unknown reasons, I didn't film any of this conversion, but that's probably a good thing, as the finish on the guy's hands was one of my least favourite. It was a fairly simple conversion, as I just took a sheriff and swapped his club for a really big beer mug. And with that, my conversions were done. Alright, so it is update time, and for the, I think there's some quite a good news update, but for your context, it is currently Thursday, the 31st of October. Happy Halloween! Oh yes, so I'm delighted to say that my conversions are done. So you saw me kind of getting on with the project, and then what you've hopefully seen, if past Damian has done a good old job on the editing, is me kind of like actually doing the conversions. Huh? Me? Yes, I did a good job on the editing. Don't worry about me, I'm fine. It's you need to worry about. Paint your hobbits. Paint your hobbits. Pretty good, this. I thought it would be a nice idea now, because I'm not quite sure how those sections are going to come out, to just have a quick look at everything before the paint begins so you can see how the models are put together. And I'm going to start with the models that I showed you in a separate clip about the painted models. So the 5 militia that I converted into other models, and for various reasons along part of the process. So I'm going to start with my 2 archers. So this one, fairly really basic one. One of the kind of, I had to turn, basically I turned 2 planned archer conversions of my full conversions. I decided not to make the archers. They just both became members of the band, and I didn't want them to have bows and quivers. So as a result of that, I had to turn 2 militia into archers. So this one is actually just the bow and arrow from the conversion pack, the Battle Games of Middle-earth conversion pack, which I trimmed both the quiver and the bow down to be Hobbit size. So a bit rubbish there. Next one's a bit better. He had this kind of sword arm, and he's got a quiver from a Warg Rider on his back there, so that one looks a little more natural. It's pretty cool. Here is my horn blower for the band. This one came out alright. It was kind of a cunning way to incorporate the horn in, like that. You can see a little bit of green stuffing done. That's what I've been finishing. The last 2 evenings I've spent green stuffing. And you can see here the real impact. There's a little chip on his head, on his hat, and there's a bit of a kind of super glue mark now on his arm, and a bit of a chip around his fingers. That's what I'll need to clean up. But most of the model is absolutely fine, so won't require any work. Next up, we have the horn blower dude, and I will jump ahead to show you this guy, and he's basically going to sit there and go boop, boop, boop. He's holding this like giant horn for this guy, is the idea. But yeah, the horn blower dude, it's quite cool. Again, not too much damage to that model as part of that conversion, so that's pretty cool. And the tambourine and panpipes guy. A bit of green stuff on the panpipes, a bit of green stuff on the tambourine. So those are the 5 painted ones, and I've started with those because I'm actually going to paint those first. Alongside those, I have, is it 18? I think 18 or 19 other models to paint. And so purely on a kind of logistical level, on a kind of painting handle, models on the desk kind of level, I've decided to paint these 5 first. So I'm going to get these guys under, going to hand undercoat the metal bits with white, and then I'm going to get stuck into those. And there's a kind of psychological trick here, but the way my thinking is, I can finish these in either an evening or 2 evenings, and then check those 5 models off, have like, right, those 5 models are done, it's only the other models, as opposed to kind of having them hang over my head. So that's what's next up for painting. And then let's have a look at the conversions. So we'll start with the band. We have my guitarist, made at Gaffer Gamgee primarily. I think I said this, I was really panicking about the green stuff. I was thinking I've got a lot of green stuffing to do and I'm not very good at it. But it only took me 2 evenings. I was expecting it to take a lot more. There's a guitarist. We have the violinist, which again I was pretty pleased with. I was particularly pleased how I managed to actually get his head, his chin, on the little chin panel in there. This is one of the archers that I had, and what I decided to do was cut the flights off and basically use this as a pouch that he'd put the bow for the violin in. That's exactly the sort of thing where I was like, it just looked weird to me when he had when I'll display him on the display board that he'd have like arrow flights coming out. So I decided that the two of these archers would actually just become militia, and that meant I needed to turn two of my painted militia into archers. I'm pretty pleased with this. There was an awful lot of moving parts on this one to kind of get the arm with the bow in the right place, as well as getting the head in the right place and all that. But I'm pretty pleased with how it came out. And why don't we do the other archer while we're talking about him? Wherever he is, he's this guy here. So this is the other archer, actually the same base model, and this one I drilled out the quiver and I put a flute in. I had a spare flute and no one to give the flute to, so I put that in there, and then put the harp under his arm. We've got the kind of hand from Whole Foot Brace Girdle, or is it Whole Foot? It might be Robin Smallborough. It's Robin Smallborough, the hand from Robin Smallborough, which I kind of thought looked like he had fingers that were about to pluck a harp. Thought that was quite good fun. Who else have we got in the band? Yeah, as I just kind of showed you, we have the guy here that I deliberately went for one with his mouth open, who's going to be sitting on a barrel and blowing that big horn, which I thought was quite good fun. We have the drummer, who's this guy. So I've got him sitting on a little stool. He's got a drum. He's got some drumsticks made of, I don't really know, it might be Father Maggot's size, it might be Sheriff clubs, but there was just two bits of metal I had lying around in my pile that I had there. And he's also got this drum here, second drum, which I've kind of tried to put his hand on as if he's like patting the drum, is the idea of that one, that he's using that one while banging the drumsticks on here. Or, he's having a break, isn't he? But that was a cool little piece. So that's 5 of them. Is that all the band? I think that might be all the band members. Yeah. So we also have this guy who's going to be sitting in the tree. So this guy isn't in the army. I don't need this guy. He's just an extra hobbit I'm painting up that won't contribute anything beyond hopefully looking cool sitting in the tree watching Bilbo's speech. He's got the hand from either Merry or Pippin from Treebeard, and I'm going to try and paint that to be, I don't think I'll get away with it as an apple, but it could be a big lump of cheese, right? So I think I might paint that as a block of cheese or something, which is quite good fun. We've got this dude who has fallen down. I can't decide yet. I'm going to put some food in here, and I'm going to have the option for the display board where either he's being scared by the firework going off, or one of Farmer Maggot's dogs has knocked him over and is trying to steal his food, basically. I actually forgot during the green stuff in process that I was going to put some form of food in there, so I'll have to knock something up for that. But I was really pleased with that one, actually. That model there that comes off, that head that comes off this model, was really quite hard to cut off. If you see, like, it's not an easy trim. Like both the chin is significantly lower than the back of the head, and so on and so forth. But I just took my time with them, and managed to get him off. I was pretty pleased. Another dog-based one is this guy, who's the old Sam cooking model. I gave Tolman Cotton's head, and this frying pan that I'm going to put, again, I forgot to put the food in it, but this one's going to be like feeding the dogs. He's either going to look like he's deliberately feeding one of the dogs, or he looks quite angry, so maybe he's dropped his pan and the dog's jumped onto him or something. But I think it'd be quite good fun. We have the very first conversion, which was Banderbrush took the 5th great-great-great-grandson of Bull Took, who's going to be the Barrel Roarer. So he's got this, he's meant to be bigger. I used Farmer Maggot's head because Farmer Maggot's actually quite a large hobbit. He's got this stupidly large pint glass, and I'm going to paint a bull's face onto the front of his barrel. We also have this little dude who's crouching. This is where the Banderbrush Took head went. Again, I learnt that the metal hobbits are bigger scale. The metal hero hobbits, like the Fellowship of the Ring hobbits, that sort of thing, are bigger scale than the Shire hobbits. So you'll actually see the best example of that is my Sam conversion. That sometimes the head scale doesn't quite work for the swaps. So this was a case where the bigger head of Banderbrush actually worked quite well on one of the Fellowship. I think I'm going to paint him and then put a couple of barrels in front of him on his base, so he's kind of hiding behind some barrels as part of hide and seek or something. Maybe he's not meant to be there. This is probably one of the ones that came out the worst. This is just meant to be a guy filling up his jug. There's a, I think I've talked about it before, there's a really iconic shot of just a kind of drunk laughing hobbit filling up a drink, and I kind of wanted to, I don't know, pay tribute to that, and so this is it. This lines up with one of the barrels. Again, it's this massively large jug, and I had to kind of try and reforge the kind of handle of it. It didn't come off particularly well, but I don't really care because he's just a militia. It's just a bit of a fun one, but it's not too bad. We then have the Proud Foot, the Proud Feet one, which again I was pretty pleased with, to be honest. Little treasure chest to rest his feet on, a chair which I had to cut a bit off this to make the chair less deep for him to sit on. Gaffer Gamgee's yelling head, I think Falco Boffin's feet, like that. But I think he looks quite nice in the end. He doesn't quite look like the model, but I think we get the idea of it. And even just the hint of being able to cross his legs, I think is quite cool. So pretty happy with that. I've then got the two guys that carry the cake. I must say the cake hasn't been done at the moment. That's another thing. I just ran out of green stuff in my last batch. But I've got this guy. That's obviously a Hobbit militia. I decided to leave him with his sword because I thought his sword could be a big knife to cut the cake with, and a little bit of Farmer Maggot's scythe and Falco Boffin's head, and this guy who is my Farmer Maggot with a Robin Smallborough head, and the militia arm, and then they basically carry this. He says it's very hard to do, a bit like that. So I'm going to put another level of that cake on top, and hopefully get some candles in it, but they'll be carrying the cake, which I think is quite fun. And then that just leaves us with our 4 famous hobbits. So I'm going to start with what I think is the weakest, which is Sam, where again it's the great model of Robin Smallborough, but that is about the only thing that matches Sam's appearance, the only hobbit that matches Sam's appearance, where he's got a jacket and a waistcoat, and Sam's head from the cooking scene, which is the only Sam where he doesn't look angry. But I just think the head's a bit too big. But yeah, this is him. I think I'll just have another ale. He's going to get himself another ale rather than dancing with Rosie Cotton, which is fine if that's what you want to do with your life. So I've then got my Dancing Frodo, which I'm really pleased with. This one kind of came out far better than I thought it would. So it's a big combination here. We've got Falco Boffin's body, we've got a metal Hobbit militia's legs, Gaffer Gamgee's arm, and the Osgiliath Frodo, which again is the only Frodo where he actually looks like he's got a hint of a smile. Looks kind of like quite a happy Frodo. Which I don't really get for the Osgiliath one because he's about to, just hand over the ring to Mordor, but whatever. But again, pleased with that. Very, very different model of Frodo, which is always kind of the point. And I'm particularly pleased with, we'll have to see when I paint it, but the green stuffing to me looks pretty good and has kind of joined the legs on that quite nicely. And then finally we've got Merry and Pippin, which, since you would have seen me converted them, I also decided to mess their hair up a bit. I might have gone over the top with this, but I think it will look good. Bear in mind I'm going to paint these and then dry brush them kind of black and grey so they look like they're covered in soot, and they have their hair kind of blown up in the film, so I think it'll work for the comedy. Really happy with the angle on this guy of Pippin looking with his open mouth from the Treebeard kit, looking up in shock at what they've done. And then similarly, I like the idea of Merry, where I put the Merry head on Falco Boffin's body, and I quite like the pointing up idea of him like pointing at the firework as it's gone off. So yeah, and again I kind of messed his hair up a bit. So there we go. Those are my conversions. You'll notice Gandalf isn't here. I didn't count him as part of this. I just need to swap his staff, but I haven't done that yet. But there we go. Was it in the end 6, 9, 12, 15? It's 18 hobbits that need to be done, as well as those other 5. So I'm going to paint the other 5. So it's Halloween, so the B-Side historians amongst you will know that tomorrow night we have Battle Screams in Middle-earth, and my project for that is going to be these guys. I'm going to try and get these guys touched up and maybe finished. And then I have 4 weeks. It's 4 weeks today to the point we'll be leaving in 4. It's a Thursday night, and in 4 weeks' time it will be my last night. That's when we're heading off to Throne of Skulls. If I can't stress enough, I'm sure I've said this a million times in this video and the next vlog you'll see, if it was just these guys, I'd be really happy. If I just had to paint these guys in 4 weeks, I'd be really, really pleased. But I've also got to make the display board, which as of yet isn't started. So that's the disaster. But there's no point, there's really no point in worrying about it. This is where we are, and this is where we're going to plunge on. So yeah, I'm going to paint those 5 Hobbits, I'm going to glue some sand to these bases, I'm going to spray them white, and I'm going to get stuck into them. And I think what I will next do is check in with you when these guys are base coated and shaded. If I'm doing that in about a week, so by like the 7th of November maybe, so there's 3 weeks to go to do all the highlights. I think we'll be in a decent place, but who knows really. So there we go. Those are my finished conversions. Very happy with how they're looking, but still a long way to go with the painting. And let's see how we do. Onwards. And that is where we're going to leave it. Oh yes, it's a cliffhanger. Hi, I'm future Damian. I return to you now from at the turn of the tide. I'm recording this after Throne of Skulls. Oh yes, I know how it ends. I've started editing. This is actually the first clip I've filmed since I got back from Throne of Skulls, and I've started assembling the wealth of material in the lead up to Throne of Skulls. And whilst, as you know, at the start of this vlog, I set out that this vlog would be the last batch of Hobbits going, probably going right up to the end of Throne of Skulls. As I started assembling the footage, it was just too much. I'm in the middle of the edit of this vlog now, and it looks like we're already up to what you've seen is probably going to be around the hour mark, and then there's about at least another 45 minutes on the other side of the kind of painting in the last vlog. So this seemed like a kind of natural point to cut the vlog and make a natural break, if you will. We've just finished converting the models. The models are all finished, and now we're going to start painting them. Also, the last clip was on the 31st of October, so this vlog nicely covers the end of October, and then there's just a month of painting to come in the next vlog. So it kind of made sense there. I'm no stranger or worrier about long videos, but I kind of thought like 2 videos that are about 45 minutes to an hour is better than 1 video that's about 2 hours, and I hope you agree. So yeah, I'd originally planned for there to be kind of a vlog looking at the converting and then a vlog looking at the display board, and it's now becoming pretty clear as I look at this wealth of material ahead of me that you're going to get 2 vlogs looking at the Hobbits. So this is one of them. You're going to get another vlog looking at painting the Hobbits, and then you're probably going to get 2 vlogs looking at the creation of the display board, because there's so much stuff going into that. And then we'll do an event review. So there's plenty more Throne of Skulls content to come on the channel. But it will probably be in the new year. As I'm sitting here recording this, this is probably going to be the last video I upload before Christmas. So I will keep editing away, desperately trying to catch up with my backlog of editing. That's my hobby at the moment. Since I got back from Throne of Skulls, I haven't painted a model, but I'm cool. I'm happy with it. I'm really, really happy and content, and I'm just enjoying working my way through all this footage and documenting it. So yeah, I hope to get the next one out pretty quick. In all honesty, it's not nearly as big a job as this one was. You'll never kind of notice it, but this vlog has been a massive slog. All that voiceover stuff of all the clips, there's 110 clips, video clips just under that voiceover that obviously needed to be edited to the sound, and that was just a massive task. So it's just taken an awful lot, but there isn't that in the next one. So the next one should be out kind of quicker. Obviously we've got kind of Christmas coming and all that sort of stuff, so I don't know quite how quickly it'll be, but I would certainly hope that you'll have a new vlog out before the end of the year, essentially, you know, before New Year's Eve. I'd hope I've managed to sneak another one out. So yeah, that's the exciting thing. So I hope you have enjoyed this. As I said, this one's been a massive effort, so please leave a comment below, tell me what you like, tell me your favourite conversion. Maybe that's a good topic. Which of the Hobbit conversions do you think has come out the best? And get involved in the discussion, because the comments down there really genuinely do motivate me to keep making this content. It's the most important thing in there. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit subscribe. The link to our Patreon is down below, and if you want to get involved in the community and keep up the B-Sime chatter in between the streams and the hobby vlogs. But beyond that, all that's left for me to say really is, on behalf of myself, Steve, and all of our guest hosts here, have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for all your support over the year. I hope you enjoy the break, whatever it is you're doing, and we'll see you soon on Battle Streams, either on one of our live streams or in the next of these hobby vlogs documenting my progress through Throne of Skulls. Maybe in 2024, or maybe in the bright new lights of 2025. So until then, thank you so much for your support. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you very soon.